It is the feeding frenzy. All shall be devoured. Nothing shall survive. Oh, cat videos are guaranteed to get more views, aren't they? I mean, not like I don't really care about the views, at least. I mean, they're good. They're good insofar as like helping to build a community to talk about old computers with, but for views' sake, I don't really give too much of a shit about. Good morning, gentlemen. I haven't had my coffee yet. Just came in from checking the cattle. There have been, pardon me. There have been some responses to the video about putting together an old computer network, and I think there's more interest in it than I anticipated. Some mention of hooking some Atari 8-bits and stuff to something like that. I haven't done a whole lot with getting stuff that's that old attached to networks ever, but I've farted around with these ESP32 serial modules that act like where's my cup? That act like Wi-Fi modems, and I'd think, I mean, you can build those things really cheap, but you know, you could hook some of those to your serial ports. Like you'd have to have like well, I guess you wouldn't have to. You could have a separate port for each quote unquote line of your BBS. But the way I do it, like if I had 6 serial ports and I had 6 of these dongles hooked up to them, I'd have like a Raspberry Pi, and I'd write a little daemon in C that listened on like one single port on that Raspberry Pi, and then opened a connection to one of those 6 free serial ports over the Wi-Fi to those serial dongles. Whenever somebody connected to that port on that multiplexing machine. Hell, that wouldn't take much power. You could do that with a Raspberry Pi Zero, probably. I think that'd be the easiest way to get a BBS up that ran on machines that didn't have like some kind of TCP/IP thing on them. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. I think it was Gorf that mentioned the Atari BBSs. I apologize if I get any of you all mixed around. I'm dumber than a sack of hammers, especially before I've had my coffee. Isn't this a fancy-ass coffee machine? That thing, I mean, it looks kind of shitty, but it makes the best fucking coffee. Oh, my Lord. I don't know why it's so special. But anyway, let's see. Steven's Pastime said he was pumped as fuck about an old computer network idea, and he'd been thinking about doing the same thing, and he is ready to do it. We should do it, man. Sometime all of us who are interested in this thing should get together in like a chat or something and make a plan or something. I'll make a more detailed video about this VPN routing thing here at some point. And I think Michael Ealing said that he was pumped about such a thing too, and he said he would be happy to, pay a little bit of money even to connect to something like that. And I certainly don't want to make something like that pay to play or anything like that. But and right now the hosting costs would be very, very low. Somewhere between $10 and $15 a month. It takes two of the very, very smallest instances on DreamCloud to make the thing run right now. And they have memory quotas on there, but and they have like a number of virtual CPUs allocated. Varies depending on the type of instance you start, but they don't have any like network usage quota. So for something like this that was primarily doing like VPN routing, I would think that it would run fine for a moderately decent number of users with on just one of those 512 meg instances. I mean, being the filthy ANCAP that I am, I do think that it's if somebody wants to pay you for something, then you might as well let them. You know what I'm saying? So my thought was, if people wanted to put money back into something like that, even though there wouldn't be very much overhead, of course, you'd want to build up like an operating fund into the future. Like 6 month worth of operating fund or something, so that that'd be like $200 or something like that. But then after that, I think it might be interesting to take that money and use it to buy old computers, perhaps even broken old computers off of eBay. Specifically, separately from the ones that I get and do anyway myself that I want to keep. But these particular machines, like we could get them off of eBay or something, preferably broken, and I could make a YouTube video fixing them, which would be fun. And then through some kind of weighted voting or random selection or something like that, the old machine, that the money that people had contributed, that had been bought with the money that people had contributed, could be given away to some user or host or something on this network to try to drive people to keep using it, like a little contest raffle sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that none of you guys are still watching, are you? I'm not lucid enough right now to string coherent thoughts together in such a way to retain people's attention, am I? Oh Lord. If only I were a cat, life would be a lot simpler. Act cute all the time and get fed. The problem with this sort of thing, I see two problems. One of them is quite a bit less of a problem than the first one, but the worst challenge, let's call it a challenge. The worst challenge that I see is that for a network of old computers like this to be interesting, there have to be machines and services on that network for new users to connect to and play with, that are interesting enough to keep them around. And there has to be plenty of stuff to do. You can only log into a VMS machine and fart around randomly for so long before it's like, yeah, okay, I've had my fill of this. What's the next thing to go look at? You know what I'm saying? So there has to be, let's call that content, if we want to use the lingo from today's web services, right? So in order to retain users, there has to be content for those users. But this would be like the sort of network where the machines connected to it and the services running on them, I like the content was supplied by the users. So there's kind of like this chicken and egg paradox thing going on there. So the launch of such a network would have to be the initial launch would have to be done very carefully. There would have to be interesting shit in place that was well tested, so that before all of the VCF forum posts and all that stuff went out to tell people that the thing was ready to rumble, so that the experience would be good and people would be like, "This is sweet. I'm going to hook my own shit up to it." Otherwise, it would fail into nothingness immediately and never go anywhere, because that first that first impetus given to it would have to be just right, to make it succeed, I think. And that would require, I think that requires a lot of head scratching and pre planning, and it's very important, and can't be fucked up. Uh, the other problem, the other challenge that I see, um, is less of a bad thing per se, but there's also the possibility that you know all of the people that would connect to a network like this are the kinds of people that have old computers sitting around, right? And I think that a lot of people, wouldn't be hosting services. They'd have, their Commodore or their IBM PS2 or whatever. They'd be connecting as clients through like some kind of telnet or terminal program or something, or maybe even an old browser or Gopher or whatever, right? And they wouldn't be hosting services. But I think that a large percentage, not necessarily a majority of the users, but a non-trivial percentage of users of such a network would want to bridge their own old computer networks onto this thing, and run their own services. So like the if that was a thing, the result would be that like everybody and their brother would be running a BBS and a mod and have like a public Unix server and all this stuff, right? So there would be like a million public machines out there on this network for people to use, way more than the number of users actually connected to the network at a time, right? And the thing that made BBSs and multi-user Unix servers and MUDs and all that stuff cool back when they were actually popular, was that there were a bunch of people on them. It was a social experience, and if we have this huge desert of like empty services, way more than the number of users using them, then there'll be like one person connected to each thing, or like nobody connected to most things, and like one person occasionally connecting to something, and it would be like an empty environment without that like multi-user experience that made that shit cool to begin with. And you know how I am. I don't like to have any kind of like centralized structure to stuff like this. I mean, other than the routing point running on this VPN hardware, and there are better VPN protocols that don't have to be centralized too, like Tink. I need to read more about that. Someone on Discord turned me onto that, but it maintains its own routing tables somehow. So there'd have to be a little bit of configuration. I need to read more about it, but something like that could be a little more decentralized than this Open VPN thing. But I digress. Anyway, you know how I am about not liking top down, like, for lack of a better term, power structures. So I don't think that those of us who would be running like that centralized routing service should, like tell people what kinds of machines and services they can connect to it, other than it should be like at least old computer adjacent. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sure, put your modern web server on there if you're hosting a bunch of like information about old computing, right? But like, don't put your like, you know, modern server running something that has nothing to do with old computing on it. You know what I'm saying? Um, but so I don't know. I mean, I guess we'd be doing good if that became a problem, um, and then maybe we could cross that bridge when we came to it, if we came to it. I'm still dubious as to whether something like this would like be viable long term. Um, It would be interesting to try to implement, though, just from a technical perspective, even if it failed, though. So we might as well try to do it at some point. Maybe not immediately, but sometime. But like, I guess that whole like giving away old computing equipment using leftover funds contesty thing could be used somehow to promote various services that people were hosting on the network in order to um, create like gatherings of people and replicate that social experience. But then again, that stinks of the top down control of stuff. I don't know. Maybe they're just maybe things just won't have to won't be able to be ideal or something. I don't know. I'm really rambling bad now, and I think my coffee's done. So it's time for that. What do you guys think about all that? Assuming any of you have actually watched this far. Um, if you've got any ideas about how to deal with any of these challenges or anything else, I would love to hear them. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Join the Discord down there if you want. Yeah. All right. See you later. Bye.